Okay, yeah, so my name is John Renard, and I'm the founder of WHOlives. WHOlives is a charity organization. On my first trip home from Africa, number one, I was stunned at the poverty that I saw. You know, I'd seen poverty before. We had traveled to a lot of what we might call developing countries, but I'd never seen poverty at that level. I just kept on seeing some of the same things over and over again. Everybody's daily life revolved around their struggle with water. And I had no idea that that was even a huge problem. And it just stood to reason that if they can get their water problem fixed, that almost by default, they could fix most of their healthcare problems. That it's then that you can start creating opportunity. And part of the problem, I think, is that we call it a water problem. And in reality, it's not a problem, it's genocide. Genocide by definition is when people are dying in a situation that is preventable, and you can segment that group into a certain group. Well, we know that the children especially are susceptible to this scarce and contaminated water. The women and girls are enslaved basically their whole lives to fetch this water, and yet there's still 3.4 million people dying every year because no one's come up with a solution. Several years ago, we had a horrible breakout of Ebola. There was about 3,500 people who had died of Ebola. But when you equate it to the everyday water problem, that's like about 6 hours. Every 6 hours, more people die from water-related diseases than all the people who died in that latest outbreak of Ebola back just a couple years ago. Dirty water takes more lives than any one cancer. You think of the billions of dollars that we put into researching a cure for cancer, which I think is a worthy cause. We got to figure it out. We got to figure out how do we prevent it. But the crazy thing is, we know what prevents 3.4 million deaths per year that are happening in these developing countries. We have the medicine. The medicine is clean water. Well, here's the problem, is that in almost all societies in sub-Saharan Africa, if there's no ownership to that well, the well's not going to get maintained. And so here we see 80, 90,000 wells that have been put in over the last couple of decades, of which the vast majority are derelict. They're not working. See, when a well is installed, it'll typically last between 12 and 14 months before the rubber seals wear out. Once those rubber seals wear out, the pump won't pump any more water. And so, again, instead of getting that pump fixed, they'll just go back to the dirty water sources. But in doing so, in going back to get to the dirty water, what they forget is that there might have been 100 children that were born in this village over that time that the well actually worked. All those children have been weaned on clean water, and they haven't built up any antibodies against the the myriad of diseases that exist in the pond water and the river waters and in the puddles that they're gathering the water from. And so when they bring that dirty water back to the first time to that child, and that child is now ingesting this water, the mortality of these kids, mortality rate is through the ceiling. In some villages, we've heard of up to 80% of the children that were weaned on clean water and then introduced to the dirty water pass away. Every time you give, you're actually creating more dependency. Our philosophy has been exactly the opposite. Our philosophy is we want to create opportunity, not dependency. If what you're doing to help is not making them money, or they cannot turn that into an economy, you're probably doing it wrong. And you're probably creating more dependency and not opportunity. The job of getting water in sub-Saharan Africa falls on the backs of the women and the young girls to fetch water for daily living. The distances that they have to travel, on average, it's between 2 and 3 kilometers every day. And again, you're talking about basically a jerry can, a 5-gallon bucket. The weight of that water is about 42 pounds. And just to repeat it the day after and the day after and the day after. No time to play. There's no energy to play. There's no energy to go to school. There's no time to be a child, because they're in this daily enslavement of having to fetch water for the family. So a lot of people are under the impression that there's not a lot of water in Africa. And actually the opposite is true. There's more water on the African continent than there is in America. The problem is simply access. Most of the water, quite frankly, is just 30 or 40 meters under the ground. And you think about how short that distance is. You think about how far, where are you when you walk 30 steps? Are you at your mailbox? Are you at your neighbor's house? Have you gone from one store to another in the mall? That's all we're talking. That's the distance between life and death. It's 30 meters to get to this water. Clean, crystal clean, healthy water. The only innovation that we've had are these big water drilling trucks. The problem is getting a big, large truck down a footpath to get to a village to go the 30 meters. They can't get there because there's no improved roads to where they live. Even if they could make it there, the second problem is cost. The cost to drill a well with one of these big rigs, these big drilling rigs, is $20,000 to $25,000. Well, there's no way that a small village can pay for that with the economy that they're currently in. There had to be a change. We had to figure out a way that we could have a drill mechanism, some sort of a drill that was mobile enough and strong enough to actually drill through the substrate, drill through the rock in order to get to that water. And we have that tool now. We have created a tool that is not only strong enough, but it's also transportable, where we can get to, quite literally, 100% of the people where they live. The tool is called the village drill. the genius behind the village drill is how simple it is. It has to be simple so that it's easy to use, but more importantly, so it doesn't break down. The experienced drill teams are drilling within an hour. Normally, they reach water within 7 to 8 hours. So in many cases, the day they arrive, they hit water. The village drill survives because of its simplicity. It's designed to be modular. So you take it apart, you move it, you put it back up. It was just last summer that I was drilling with 001. The first village drill that we had ever built is still in operation 7 years later. But I'll be honest with you, we need help. We're not even scratching the surface with the drills that we have out there. This is a tool that could stop the genocide. The village drill is inexpensive, it's robust, it's transportable, and bottom line, it does the job. It solves the problem. It gets to the clean water that every human should have a right to. Water has to be the baseline. On top of water, you build schools. On top of water, you build medical clinics. On top of water, you create greater agriculture. On top of water, you're going to save 3.4 million lives per year, and you're going to improve nearly 1 billion lives per year. There's no example of a developed community that hasn't already first solved their scarce and contaminated water issues. If you want to eliminate poverty, you have to eliminate scarce and contaminated water issues. And my vision is to live in a world where people don't have to live in poverty. And I know that to make that happen, we have to solve first the water issues. Now, because of that simple philosophy of water, health, and opportunity, now we have a chance. My name is John Renard, and I want to solve the world's water problems.